Hello, this is Dylan Miller on Daily Dose of Dylan. Google Podcast, Spotify, Spreaker, or iHeartRadio. This is Dylan Miller on Daily Dose of Dylan. Alright, so, got some good things to cover today. A lot more NBA talk than usual, but I will be addressing the NBA draft a lot, as well as the NFL offseason. Alright, so let's get into it here. So, the NBA draft is tomorrow night, and obviously the consensus number one pick is Victor Wembanyama. So, I think it's pretty much certain. I haven't been this certain about number one pick since Zion. It's pretty clear where the Spurs and any other team with the number one pick would be leaning towards. The great thing about a player like Wembanyama is, yes, he's a little thin, but guess what? So is Giannis, so is KD. Even Anthony Davis was a little thin coming into the league, but they all put on weight and turned out, I think, just fine. But he really doesn't have any red flags. He just seems like he's just a highly talented player. He doesn't seem to have a flaw, which is pretty... Depending on how you look at it, that could be a good thing or a bad thing, because... Zion didn't look too flawed coming into the league either. And then we found out it was his health that was the problem. As a player, when Zion plays, he's fine, but he is consistently injured. So, you could be worried that he might show a major flaw when he comes into the league, but no reason to not draft him number one, because there's no one even close to his level, even close to his ceiling. But another case we can come up with is, over the last few years, the number one pick in the draft hasn't necessarily been, the best player. They haven't turned out to be the best. 2013, Giannis was the best. He was 15th. 2014, Jokic, he was in the second round. Then Booker, he was 13th. Jaylen Brown, Tatum, Doncic were all third. Only Anthony Edwards is the only one I can think of in the last 10 years that was number one and the best player in the draft. And, when you look at the people that went first in those years, Anthony Bennett, maybe one of the biggest busts in NBA history. There's Markelle Fultz. Didn't turn out too well. Let's see who else was there. Zion is constantly injured. Andrew Wiggins has showed some signs of being... He showed promise, but not the number one overall promise that you would have hoped. And I hope he turns out well, but... there's no reason for me to believe he won't, but... Based on the last 10 years, there's a good chance he won't be the best player in the draft. But doesn't mean he can't be doesn't mean he'll be unsuccessful. So I was watching the Herd a few minutes ago, and I saw there was a graphic posted with teams with the most playoff wins since 2000. Obviously, the Patriots have 30. They're way ahead. The team in second is the Eagles and Ravens. Each have 16, so it's not even close. The Patriots have way more than any other team since 2000. But the top row, what you would expect: Pats, Eagles, Ravens, Steelers, Packers, Colts, and Chiefs. Bottom is also what you would expect. You got the Raiders, Jags, Bears, Washington, Browns, and Lions. Obviously, the Lions haven't won since the 90s. So, but I think what struck most people is that I think the Cowboys and Dolphins were probably the biggest surprise to me. Because I mean, you might think of them as more top-end organizations, but they are way on the bottom. The Dolphins have one playoff win in the past 23 years. The Cowboys only have 4. The Cowboys have the same amount of playoff wins as the Raiders and Jags and Texans. And they have 2 less wins than the Jets. And those are all organizations that haven't been well-ran in the past 20 years. And that just adds to the point that I think a lot of people are making, which is that the Cowboys are always overrated. You know, you always expect them, Cowboys fans are all very, this year's the year, and it's not going to be their year for a while. I'll just make that clear. Just think about this. Blake Bortles has the same amount of playoff wins as Dak. Blake Bortles has the same amount of playoff wins as Dak. And Dak is significantly better. So that's not a Dak problem. The Cowboys, I just think they overpay their stars. I think they're more interested in flash rather than, what it actually takes to be a good organization. But, I think this year they're going to find themselves in the same spot they have the past few years. Fighting for a playoff spot in the last week. And they're going to start off, it's going to be the same thing. They're going to start off very well. People are going to hype them up, then they're going to fall off a cliff. Be fighting for a playoff spot. If they make it, they're out the first round. So the Giants are resuming contract talks with Saquon, which I would hope so. But the problem here is Saquon has a lot of leverage because the Giants, there's no sugarcoating it. They overpaid Daniel Jones. They gave Daniel Jones $40 million a year, and honestly, he's a C+ quarterback. He's not an A quarterback. Saquon's an A running back. Outside of Saquon, their offense is mediocre. Thankfully, they have a phenomenal offensive coach in Brian Daboll, but without Saquon, I think if Saquon were to leave, it would be rough for the Giants. I think they would still be decent, but not a playoff team. But the Giants they find themselves vulnerable in this situation. So they got to be careful. They can't do with Saquon what the Cowboys did with Dak or Zeke Elliott, where they now, because if they pay Saquon, if they refuse to pay Saquon a lot, he's going to leave. But if they pay him too much, they could find themselves in a situation that the Cowboys were, which is in cap hell. Because you overpaid for, although the 2 guys you paid for are good, you can't spend that much money on them because then you're focusing too much on two positions. So, got to be careful. Got to somehow find the middle there, which is going to be tough. It's not an easy thing to do, but I think they may be able to do it. So, Sean Payton seems to be making a pretty immediate impact with the Broncos. Their safety, Kareem Jackson, said that Sean Payton is doing things that he's never experienced in his career, which, I mean, as a coach, that's something you want to do when you're going to a failing organization. You want to turn it around. You want to turn the culture around. And, but with Sean Payton is a head coach. Like, I don't think, if he wound up being a coordinator, I don't know if he would find much success there. And there's a big difference between a coordinator and a head coach. I think, like, for example, Nathaniel Hackett, I think is a great offensive coordinator. I don't think he's a very good head coach. Same thing with Todd Bowles. Todd Bowles is a great defensive coordinator. Horrible head coach. But, Sean Payton, he's a head coach at heart. It's what he does. He's good at it. And I don't believe the Broncos are a playoff team this year, but I think they're going to be significantly improved from last year, and I think Sean Payton will find himself in the Coach of the Year conversation. All right. Let's shift to basketball for a bit. So LeBron is apparently, there's a report saying he's frustrated with AD and is having a power struggle with Rob Pelinka. Now, I don't think it's that LeBron hates AD. I just think LeBron would like to win. I mean, he's in win now mode, which is, because he's going on 40 right now. So, he's looking to win a ring, and he saw that if AD can't compete with Nikola Jokic, the Lakers aren't going to win a title. If you watch that series with Denver, you would see, I think Jokic averaged a triple-double against Anthony Davis. So I don't think it's necessarily that they're having personal problems as much as it is LeBron sees it how it is, which is no matter how good they do, once they can reach the Western Conference Finals next year against Denver, and it won't matter because Jokic is just going to get into the paint and push AD around. So, I mean, I think LeBron's just looking for AD to get, that's crazy that this sounds better, even though he already is great, but he has to be better than Jokic in order for them to get over the hump of Denver. Alright, so Kevin Durant credited Westbrook, Harden, and Kyrie, called them influential and inspirational. Now, I do believe they're influential. I believe they've had influence on this generation. But I don't think of them as inspiring players. I think of Kyrie as more erratic and selfish. Harden, I think, is also very ball dominant. Westbrook, he's very productive, I think. I think he is a polarizing player, but I wouldn't call Russ, Kyrie, and Harden inspiring. At least not in a good way. Alright, so Jets safety Jordan Whitehead, who played with Brady on the Bucks, and now Rodgers on the Jets, compared the situation with Rodgers coming to the Jets to Brady coming to the Bucks. Now, here's why I think it's a little different. I just think what Brady inherited was a lot better than what Rodgers is going to. I think, and also Brady got to handpick free agents, like 3 or 4 free agents. He got to handpick them and bring them over to Tampa Bay. And also, Brady played with veteran, like, experienced players. Rodgers is going to a young and up-and-coming team. So in some ways, it's a completely opposite situation. You know, Brady inherited the best O-line in football. Rodgers is going to a bit of a struggling O-line with injury problems, you know? I mean, they're both going to a great defense. The Jets have a great defense. And the Bucs were in the top end as well when Brady went there. But, you know, the thing is, when Brady went to the Bucs, there weren't many questions. I mean, Brady was the question. Will he work out there? But with everyone else, you knew what you were getting. You're not really sure what you're getting with the Jets right now. You know, with Aaron Rodgers, you're getting a top-end quarterback. But other than that, I think the only player we know anything about is Garrett Wilson, who had a fantastic rookie year. But yeah, so I think it's ultimately the Bucs were a quarterback away from a Super Bowl contention. The Jets are a quarterback away from playoff contention, the way I see it. So I think they can make the playoffs. I'm not sure if they can compete for a Super Bowl. All right. So the Trailblazers seem to be pursuing a star to put alongside Damian Lillard, which is most likely not going to work. I think it's best for them to just part ways at this point. I think Damian Lillard has had a great career there, and I don't know, I just think the best option is to move on. But they seem to be pursuing Bam Adebayo as a big man, and I mean, if Lillard wants to give it a chance, knock yourself out. But like, I think this is damage beyond repair. I think Damian Lillard's time there is up. I think he's reached his expiration date. And I'm not sure there's any players they can draft at this point that are going to help Lillard, because there's not any player in the draft that's going to be NBA ready immediately. Not even Wembanyama. Speaking of which, he is a rare kind of a player. There's very few players that have been like him, that have had the talent he has. You know, like I said, the last person I saw with this much dominance is Zion, but that's not a very positive outlook, obviously, because Zion didn't turn out to, or at least he hasn't worked out in the NBA. I shouldn't say I'm not ready to say he's a bust, but he has not worked out very well. He's constantly injured. All right. So DeAndre Hopkins is still a free agent in spite of being talented enough to be a top-end receiver. But he took it to social media and said in a post, "Whoever's in my future receiving group, I promise I'll make your job easier." Obviously, selling point for teams to reach out to him. But honestly, I'm not really... It's kind of crazy that they're not. Just maybe 2 years ago, he was a top 3 receiver in the league. Some may even say he was the best 2 years ago. And even last year, he wasn't awful. He was solid. It's just he didn't hit. The year he had last year wasn't nearly as good as the ones he's had in years past. I mean, I don't know. I genuinely don't know why teams aren't reaching out to him. I've got to look more into that, but I don't think is he... How old, actually? Let me look that up real quick. Hopkins is 31. He's not even 31's not that old. He can be a solid. He can make a solid contribution to a contending team, I think. I think depending on where he signs, he's either a 1 or a 2. If a team's going to sign him as a 3, I don't think it'll work out, but maybe I think a title contending team, like maybe the Chiefs, are going to sign him or something like that. No veteran receiver, wouldn't hurt to add him to the team. All right, we got more news on the Bradley Beal trade with the Phoenix Suns. Apparently, prior to that deal being made, the Suns reached out to the Mavericks about a Kyrie sign and trade. And honestly, I don't really think that matters. I think the point is, I mean, like I said yesterday, it's a weird fit. Not sure how much I agree with it, but I do think they're going to be a solid team. I think they're going to contend for a title. And I still believe as far as the Western Conference goes, it's Denver, Phoenix, and then everyone else. I don't think anyone else is going to contend with them. I think they're the clear option for Western Conference Finals, but I don't believe they're a championship team unless they. I mean, the problem, like the comparison I made yesterday was to the Kyrie, KD, and Harden big three, but the problem with them wasn't really that they were a bad fit. It was more that they didn't play together as the three a lot. They only played 7 games together before the playoffs, so they didn't have a lot of chemistry. So I mean, if the big three of Beal, KD, and also they should trade DeAndre Ayton and see what they can get for him. If they do that, I do think they have a chance. But as of now, I believe Denver has the upper hand. All right. So Pat Riley of the Heat said that the Heat won't be making. They won't be making. Pretty much what he said was they're not gonna clean the house. They're not gonna destroy the team, which makes sense. I'm not really sure where all these trade rumors are coming from. The Heat just had a great run in the playoffs as the 8th seed and made the finals, and it's their fifth championship appearance since Pat Riley's been there. So I think Pat Riley knows how to build a winning culture. I think the Heat are in a fine spot right now. I don't see any reason to make a move. But I don't know. I think there's always going to be rumors about some team getting some player. It's not going to ever. There's very few teams in the league that are not in the news a lot. All right. But yeah, with the Suns, I really think their best play is to see the market they have for Ayton. I don't think there's a reason to keep him on the team. I think there are better big men out there. And I don't think Ayton would like being on a team that's perimeter dominant. KD is a perimeter scorer. Beal and Booker are both perimeter scorers. So they don't really need a big man like Ayton. They just gotta get a big man that can contribute. Like when the Warriors in the Splash Brother era at its peak, the Warriors never had a crazy good center at all. They had, I mean, you could say Draymond Green was their big man, but not really. he was a defensive player. He wasn't really much of a contributor on the offensive side. All right. So the Clippers are trying to determine PG's trade value for the next season coming up. Now, I saw a stat the other day. PG and Kawhi. Kawhi has missed 132 games in the last 3 years. Paul George has missed 105. So that's 237 combined games that the two have missed. And honestly, availability is important as far as value goes. Like, if the Pelicans are looking to trade Zion, his value is not that high because he's never available. He's always injured, as talented as he is. PG is a very talented player, but he's missed 105 games in the last 3 years. That's 35 games a year, so he's playing 47 games this season. For a guy that's supposed to be a number 2 guy at his worst, that's not good. And he's an exceptional talent, but I don't see any reason to... I shouldn't say that. He has... Okay. Sorry. I just messed that up. But he has value. It's just not as much as I think the Clippers believe he has. So Victor... Sorry, I'm really having a tough time pronouncing this last name. Wembanyama spoke about playing, or possibly playing for the Spurs, which he most likely will. And he mentioned that he can't wait to play for a winning culture with the Spurs. And Greg Popovich obviously have built... They won a lot there, but not in the past few years. So, and as I said earlier, he's a great player, and yeah, he's lanky, but he's not the only big man to come into the league with the skinnier build. And as I said, Giannis, Anthony Davis, Kevin Durant, they all had slimmer builds going into the league. They added muscle and made it work. Also, it's not very easy when you're above 6'11" to keep weight on. So, but I think he'll turn out pretty well in the NBA, and I think the Spurs is a good spot to land. That's one thing. That's what I like that the NBA has done in the last few years, changing the lottery. Because I mean, honestly, I know you're tanking to get the best player, but you're also tanking that player's career because you're sending them to a terrible organization. You know, this allows them to have a fair chance at getting into possibly a winning culture. And the Spurs is a good spot, although I believe Greg Popovich does not have that many more years left in him. But Spurs have built a solid culture there. And I do think his impact's not going to be immediate, but I believe the Spurs will be in a good spot in, say, 5 years with him. All right. Last topic of the day to cover. So Brandon Miller from Alabama said that he was asked about who his GOAT is. He said it was PG, not LeBron or Jordan, which some people were talking about. But I mean, I think pretty sure he's talking more about his favorite player, not who he actually think is the best to ever play. And, I think he's misinterpreting the question, but if not, I don't think it's really a big deal, honestly. I mean, he's still a great player. I think he's projected top 3 next year. There's not really any solid prediction on how the draft's going to go next year because we still have a whole year to play, whole season to go, But the consensus seems to be that Scoot Henderson is going to be the number 1 overall. Another talented player, but gotta wait to see how this next year goes. So, all right. That's it for today. Google Podcast, Spotify, Spreaker, iHeartRadio. This is Dylan Miller on Daily Just Dylan. Have a good day. I will see you tomorrow.